And if you're just happy to be here, say, hey up.
Hey up.
We'll do that again. If you're happy to be here, say, hey up.
Hey up.
That was good. And for those of you that aren't shareholders, the first 5 people to buy shares today get a free signed copy of the Fight for Fordhall Farm. Oh, well done! No way, Sophie might buy another share. We also like to take a bit of time to acknowledge and thank everyone that's not here today, and also those that are sadly no longer with us, but have all been part of the journey, pre-2006 of helping us set up the Fordhall Community Land Initiative, part of Dad's journey, the campaign, and ever since. And actually some of those that are sadly no longer with us are kind of actually still with us, because there are quite a few amazing volunteers and shareholders who have had their ashes scattered here at Fordhall, which is really lovely. So they're still here. Okay, so this little bit out in the morning, we just want to take a little moment to remember where we started and share some memorable parts of the campaign, as I said. So most of you will know that as a family, we've been farming the land here for over 400 years. Dad took over the tenancy back in 1929 when he was kind of in his 13, 14 years old. And he later turned the farm into one of England's first commercial yogurt producers. And he spent his life basically working really hard to turn the farm into a thriving organic farm, and throughout that he's spent his life learning about the importance of soil microbes and all the relationships that are needed to sustain it. And Ben and I came along in the 1980s when Dad married my mum Connie, who's just nipped off, but you all will know Mum, and she'll come up here on stage after. You can't escape, you know that. And in the 1990s, then Muller Dairy became our next door neighbour, which as you walk along the field, you'll still see them towering above the treetops there. And the landlord then saw the potential to sell the farm for development, and 10 or 15 years of legal battles then continued through the 90s whilst Ben and I were at school. Lots of money was diverted into those legal battles, livestock was sold off, and the farm became dilapidated. And then in 2004, Ben and I went, actually we don't want to leave, we want to stay. We got an opportunity to take on a short-term tenancy for 18 months. I was 21, Ben was 19, took on a very run-down farm with 11 cows, 6 pigs and 6 sheep, and thought, what are we doing? But we had hope. You know, at that time Dad was very ill. He wasn't able to do so much on site, but his passion was still there, and he was overjoyed, you know, to see Ben and I kind of take on the tenancy. And I guess what we did was we just asked for help. We shared our story, and people got involved. He died about a year into that 18-month tenancy agreement, and it was a week after Dad had sadly passed away that over 50 people from the local area, and some of those people are here with us today, we all gathered in the club room in the farmhouse and said, where do we want the farm to go in the future? What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to be? And we gathered all those ideas from the local community. We put that with what, you know, Ben and I wanted from it from a farming point of view, and came out of that community meeting thinking a community ownership structure seems to marry all those needs and wants together, where the community would collectively own the farm as its custodians, utilise it as a community resource, with a tenant farmer then managing the land and looking after it. And so a community benefit society came about, community ownership and community shares. That's £50 community share, 1 member, 1 vote structure, and a campaign began. But Dad's organic philosophy, you know, runs through it all. Community ownership, tenant and landlord working together, nature and farm working together, you and us working together. It's all about relationships and symbiotic relationships. And Fordhall, you know, exists on that, and the joy that everybody brings. You know, diversity, working together. That brings hope, that brings belief, that breaks down barriers, that makes things possible, you know, and that is really why we're here today. So I'm just going to share a couple of my kind of favourite memories from the campaign, and I'm going to pass on to Sophie and Ben, and they're going to share some of theirs, either from the campaign or after. And I think one of the biggest achievements to me was because Fordhall's still here because of the power of small actions. everybody contributed something, pretty manageable, and something that many thought couldn't be achieved, was achieved. And back then, when we were selling all those shares and we were raising that £800,000 in 2006, you all here can remember, or most of you, because I know there's younger members, it was a cheque. It was a piece of paper that was handwritten, that got posted with a stamp, that got delivered by a person, that got processed by hand, that had share certificates written by hand, that had to get taken physically into the bank, that had to be cleared in the bank, but it showed the money was there. You know, quite literally, we've had sacks of post coming, and we knew everybody. It was Postman Dave, everyone, yeah. Would come with the sacks of post. He'd hang around to watch us open the first few envelopes to see what was in there, and that was just a fantastic time. And all those volunteers that helped us process all of that paperwork. We had one volunteer for 8 hours a day, Rob from Leeds. He did nothing but open envelopes and check those checks with the application form for 8 hours. And then all the other volunteers spread right across the farmhouse, processing certificates, issuing share numbers, getting information onto databases, writing all the checks in the bank box, and we had all the records of it going through. And one of those letters, there was many letters that were very memorable, and I think some of the most memorable ones were where people had sacrificed things or shared really personal stories with us when they sent their donations or their share funds through. And actually, Charlotte, another Charlotte that was volunteering with us at the time, shared this memory with me yesterday. Oh, here she is. The Biscuit Lady, she called it. It was a card that we got that said, I've saved my money that I used to buy my biscuit treats because I can't bear to see you losing your family home. And she stuck £5 coins onto a card and sent them through into the post for me. She said, this little sacrifice I want to do to help you raise money. And yeah, and that's where every little bit counted. It wasn't just the big checks, but it was the small contributions as well. And the stories that we had from people that had lost their family farms and had gone through heartache, but they could help us save ours, many, many. And the other story is from a couple in Birmingham, and this might relate to many of you actually, because it happened a lot. Is we got this letter through and said we'd like to buy a share, and the husband, in fact this was after the campaign got the letter. My husband saw you advertising for shares and went to Save Your Farm. It was on BBC Midlands TV, and he said, oh, you know, we should help them raise money. But the wife said, well, that's not going to work. They'll never raise £800,000 in 6 months. That's not possible. And the husband went, but if we send £50 and enough other people send £50, maybe they will. So he did. He sent off his £50, he bought a share, and it happened. And they wrote us this lovely letter afterwards going, we had that conversation, and we just thought maybe if we put our £50 in the bucket, maybe that will be enough to make it work. And that is exactly what it was. It was that power of small collective actions that mean we're here today. Every action you guys have done, whether it's been a lovely phone call, a letter coming in, donating, coming to volunteering, is part of our success. And honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we'd like to really thank you for that. And on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Sophie for her stories.
Hi, I haven't practiced very well, so I'm going to check on my notes. Otherwise I'll stand here for an hour telling you all the different stories, so I really need to focus. But Charlotte told it beautifully, so thank you.
Hello?
Sorry, stay put or stand.
Thank you.
Stay put, car parking.
Just saying that I'm going to focus a bit more on my notes, otherwise I'll be here for an hour telling you all my stories. Charlotte did that beautifully. I'm going to try and not overlap, but it's very difficult because we lived the same lives for so long. It's an honour to stand here today. I feel 20 years older, but I also feel very much the same person when I'm here. Do tell me if you can't hear me again. Like that. I just to say how I got involved in Fordor Farm. I had just returned from travelling, and I came back, and my father, Jeff Hopkins, who used to run with Philippa Aki at the local Taste of the Town community, said, "Why don't you come along to this community meeting? Maybe there's something interesting for you." I've always lived my life by the Margaret Mead quote that you sometimes see hanging around in the office. I'm going to read that to you directly, otherwise I don't want to misquote it. Margaret Mead: "Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And this I repeated over and over to Charlotte through our time together. And I know that for me, that community meeting that was in February, that I didn't know anyone, I knew of very few of the people in that room, but that meeting itself had such a buzz that nobody was giving up. Everybody saw an opportunity and there was potential here, and I just wanted to be involved with this. And I said to Charlotte, I don't have a lot going on at the moment, I've just returned back. If I can help out anyway, then let me know. I used to live 6 minutes away, and before I got home, that 6-minute journey, Charlotte had already called me up and asked me to come back the day after. And like an idiot, I said yes, and then 4 years of my life had gone past. But I just want to say that, I need to look here. At the time, the three of us had a lot of other things going on. I had 2 part-time jobs, 2 volunteer jobs, Ben was studying and working, Charlotte was working, and yet Fordor was really the place that we all came together, and this here was what the drive was. This was why we were doing everything. I flicked through the book. I have to confess, I flicked through the book to be inspired about my memories, and one of them was how many hours that we used to work. I don't remember sleeping for 3 of those years. And I also picked up that I used to have to wear sunglasses at my computer because we'd been sitting there for so long, the glare was too much. It was so cold in the farmhouse. We would wear layers and layers. We'd have hot water bottles. We'd have fingerless gloves so we could still type away. And we'd be surviving on porridge and mashed banana. That fueled our entire campaign. But I want to come back to the idea of asking for help. Charlotte touched briefly on it, and I think at the beginning, if Charlotte and Ben hadn't been open for accepting help, none of this would have happened. So I think it's a huge credit to them that they even accepted people offering for help. And apart from that, it's very difficult to ask for help, and it was a real, you have to change your mentality. We asked for help and everybody stepped forward. Everyone brought different things, whether it was advice, knowledge, skills, material goods, or the computers, cake, so much cake which got us through the campaign. Thank you very much to all of that. And it was just the little things, it was all the little things that added up. As Charlotte also mentioned, it was just, see, this is why I need to stick to my notes, otherwise I can talk for too long. I've got time. The different core volunteers, I want to firstly say a big shout out. I see Leslie is here. I want to say a big shout out to the people that checked on my spelling mistakes when I was finishing the newsletters at 4 o'clock in the morning. The races to when that Charlotte and I would do, as she was mentioning, the deadlines that we would have to face. Everything was going on. It's all happening in my head. I'm normally better at this, but this is really emotional, and I'm reliving it when I'm here. Maybe that's the problem. Ben and I just quirked at how much quicker our whole campaign would have been if it happened now. We would have reached a lot more people quickly. You've got Instagram, TikTok, and all this. And Charlotte mentioned every check was had to process individually. I don't think we can underestimate the amount of people that were involved in this. Without somebody opening, checking all the spelling mistakes on the computer to see if the addresses. Do you know what the problem is? I'm thinking Dutch. I was having a whole conversation in my head in Dutch. I live in the Netherlands, by the way. I married a volunteer. My oldest son is here. The Love Farm theme is actually true. There's plenty of stories about this. But I also normally speak Dutch, so I'm having to really think hard. There's 2 more things I want to talk about. The naysayers. I think this was a massive challenge for us. But people who didn't believe, as Charlotte's already touched on, they gave us grit. And I think a lot of that is credit to Charlotte herself. She decided that she would prove people wrong, and there wasn't really a backup plan in that sense. So we put everything we had, all the eggs in this basket, and we were going to make it happen. There wasn't once that we really doubted it significantly. There were times that we sort of questioned, what are we doing, how are we going forward, but somebody else would always turn up with an idea or a hint and give us a jump forward. And it was really the naysayers who stood there and didn't believe us. They were the ones that actually propelled it forward, I have to say, which might sound surprising, but we've both got some examples, and I think Ben probably also has some examples of people that we thought, no, you're wrong, we are going to do this, because we're not on our own, because there's more than 8,000 people behind us who are going to make this happen. And I just want to talk about the last day. I was trying to think, I was trying to remember what the last day, July the 1st, was like for me. I do remember I hadn't slept for 3 days at that point. So I remember the early morning, and beyond that, the whole day was a bit of a fuzz. There was a cake, and there was lots of camera vans, but we were just so tired, and we were very, very aware that so much more needed processing. There was shares coming in, requests coming in, telephones going all the time, and we took it so genuine that everyone deserved our time and effort to apply to them and to make sure that they had the best response from us and the best knowledge of what we were doing. And as far as I know, I don't work here or volunteer here anymore, but as far as I can see, this still stands, this philosophy that everybody counts, everybody matters. That is still very much part of Fordham. And I think that's a really good place to end, otherwise I will continue. But I just want to say I feel honoured to have been part of such a campaign with everybody. It feels a little bit like a wedding that there's so many different people here. It's very nice. But I look back only with exhaustion, but also complete happiness about the whole campaign. And I'm very, very proud to have been involved in something that achieved what it did, but then carried on going. It just carried on bowling everybody over with the amount of amazing things that they've achieved. But people are at the heart of this, and that is you. As shareholders, you make Fordham what it is, and I'm very proud as a shareholder to be part of something like this. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ben, and I'll go back to being Dutch in my head.
Hello everybody.
Yes, Ali just wants to know
Right, can everybody hear me?
how did it so far?
Right, okay. Just to touch then on what Sophie was just saying about naysayers, it's really interesting just listening to Sophie talk that, because I think before the campaign started, or very early on in the campaign, when we were talking about what we wanted to do, I think I probably had conversations with 3 or 4 people in the agricultural industry or related, and people that I probably respected in terms of their experience and what they'd done. And I would come away from those conversations and come back and talk to Charlotte and Sophie and be like, oh, I've just spoken to this person, and they've told me this and this, and I'm like, God, this isn't going to work. What are we doing? We're wasting our time. We shouldn't be doing it. And I'm sure they will recall these conversations, because it happened on multiple occasions. And if it wasn't for Charlotte and Sophie convincing me that these people were wrong and we should have done it, I would have backed out really early on. I was all that this isn't going to work. I've spoken to this person and they've told me it's not going to. And then these two would convince me, like, right, okay, go on, let's give it a go. And then off we went, and look where we are now. So, yeah, thank you guys, because I definitely wouldn't have carried on if it wasn't for these two. And get off. But yeah, for sure, this whole thing would not have happened if it wasn't for these two, because if it was just me, I was, you know, I'd been offered a job by someone I worked for. One of the people had said to me, you know, why it wasn't going to work, what wasn't going to happen. They offered me a really good job with a house right at the start of all this, so it would have been dead easy to have just gone off and started doing something. But yeah, so thank you, Charlotte and Sophie, because it was definitely these two that put the motivation into me, kept convincing me that it was going to work. Not sure I always believed it, but they certainly made us carry on. Right, I don't think I've got a lot of time, which is good, because as any of you that have been to an AGM or anywhere I'm talking, I'm not a talker. That is, these two are talkers. So I haven't got a massive amount to say, and like, I've been sitting for the past couple of days trying to think what am I going to say, and a few people have asked me a few questions, so I've made a couple of notes on things that people have asked me, and I think a bit later on in the day is an opportunity for like a bit of a question and answer thing. And if people want to ask me some questions later, that would be far, far easier for me. I think Mum's got a question now. So.
Tell us how you met Mouse.
Mum's asked me to say how I met Maz.
But don't forget what you
Yeah, I'll do. Right, I'll go back to. I'll come to that in a bit, Mum. So I'm going to mention that later. Yeah. Right, so back in 2004, when Charlotte and I took over the original tenancy, which was the 18-month tenancy the landlord gave us, which was the gap between us taking over from Dad and Mum and us trying to saving the farm. Back in 2004, we had 11 cows, 6 pigs, and 6 sheep. The farm, as you see it now, was here, but it was all overgrown. So we'd go out to round the sheep up or to get them in to shear them, and we wouldn't find them. The grass was probably this long, and you'd have to stand at the top of these fields and look for where the squash grass was or see if you could find them. And the other issue we had is the grass was so long you couldn't see them, but also because the farm was so dilapidated, they might have been in that field down there yesterday, but could be in that field over there today. So if you hadn't seen them that morning, it was really, really difficult. So one of the big things for us was trying to build up the livestock and sort of reinstate the infrastructure on the farm. So when we took over, we had 11 cows, 6 pigs and 6 sheep. Charlotte and I both worked off the farm, and we both put all of our wages as we were working off the farm into buying more animals and trying to get more livestock on the farm, because the key at that time was just trying to get stock on the farm to graze the grass. We also realised if we were going to try and build a farming business, we needed animals. So we both worked off the farm, but to try and restock the farm was really difficult. So all we did is when we went to the markets, we bought the cheapest, smallest animals we could because we needed numbers. So back then we were buying the cattle and the sheep that nobody else wanted. They were the little scrawny ones that hadn't done very well, and they were really cheap, but it meant we could buy 2 of them instead of one of the really prime, big, muscly ones that as a farmer you really wanted to buy. But what was nice is we bought those really cheap cattle, the really cheap sheep, and we brought them here to this amazing grass, an abundance of grass, and they absolutely thrived, and they just grew so quick, and it was like it just transformed them. So they worked incredibly well for us. But what's nice now is that we're now up to kind of full stocking rate. We've now got, I've written it down so I don't forget, 198 cattle, about 400 sheep and about 90 pigs. And one of the things that I saw as a nice moment from the past was, because we spent so many years just trying to build up the livestock on the farm, is once we got to the point where the business was starting to work, we had more livestock, we had the opportunity where I could actually go and buy a really nice bull from a bull sale, and we went up to Carlisle with a friend Will and bought our first pedigree Aberdeen Angus bull, and that felt like a big achievement because all of a sudden we weren't just buying the cheapest things that we could just afford just to get numbers on the farm. We could actually start buying livestock which were going to be kind of the future of the herd and the kind of the confirmation and the breeding that we wanted. So that was quite a significant moment for me, being able to go and do that, and now being able to breed all of our own breeding livestock kind of in the way we want to breed, and spend quite a lot of time identifying the good cattle and the not so good cattle and breeding from the ones that have got the traits that we really want. It's nice to have that freedom to be able to do that, rather than at the start where we were just forced into having to just get cattle on the farm, where now we're being able to sort of really think about the breeding and choose which cattle we want to have and try and improve the herd. Right, I was also asked at one point, why did we do it? Why did we take it on? So I was 19, Charlotte was 21. And people used to say, why did you do it? And someone asked me recently, why did you take it all on at that age? And I don't really know. Apart from it just felt like the right thing to do. And it's interesting because it wasn't financial. I mean, we had no money, there was no backing. When we took on the tenancy, we didn't know how we were going to build it up or what the plan was going to be. But we just knew it was the right thing to do. All we wanted to do was to farm, wanted to pay, wanted for it all to carry on. We didn't know necessarily how we were going to do it, but we know that was what we wanted to do. And it's amazing to think back then, like I think my aspiration back then was to be able to farm the farm and build it up into a working farm. I never aspired or dreamt that it would become as big and successful as it is, and that's down to sort of, you know, everybody that's got involved and supported us and giving us the opportunity. I think the big thing for me is sort of having the opportunity to come and do what we wanted to do, to come and start the farm and to come and build it up. And I think being granted the 100-year tenancy agreement after FCLI bought it is probably the biggest opportunity, other than saving the farm, that everybody could have done, because being granted such a long tenancy just means that as a farmer you've got kind of the I don't know quite what the word is, like you've got the ability to plan for the future. So many farmers nowadays have relatively short-term tenancies where you have to think for the next 5 years or 10 years, or even maybe 15 years might seem like a long time to you guys, but in farming world it's not. And so, you know, when a calf's born, we're having heifers born now that we're thinking we want to breed with, they won't breed for another 2 or 3 years, and another year till they have the calf, and then that calf won't be mature for another 2 years. So really it's almost like a 5-year cycle. So to get the 100-year tenancy, for me personally as a farmer, just gave me security, enables me to plan for the future with the infrastructure on the farm and the land, and to be able to look after it. And for me, I treat the farm like it's mine. I treat it like I own it, which means I respect what it is, and I've got long-term vision all the time for how I want the farm to develop and how I want it to progress, and that's because we've got the security here as a family. So, you know, thank you all to FCI and to shareholders and for sort of giving that to us. I appreciate it. I kind of lost track of what I was saying, but a couple of other things I was going to say was the farm now has 10 full-time employees directly related to the farm and the produce that we produce. So working on the farm, the butchery, the farm shop, the bakery, and that's pretty significant for the size of farmer that we are. And then there's also much more employees as well with what we do with the catering business and the way we take the farm's produce off and sell it sort of around the country at different shows and events. So I think, like I said earlier, I think over the past 20 years we've achieved more than I ever imagined we would achieve, more than I ever aspired to or ever thought was even physically possible. And so who knows what the next 20 years is going to be. It's I don't know, but really looking forward to it. Mum wanted me to mention how I met Maz, my wife, and she's here somewhere, she's over there. So I met Maz, as Sophie mentioned earlier about what she calls a love farm. I met Maz and she was volunteering with Sophie at the farm, and we met here, and we're now married with 3 children. So Jamie and Isabel at the front, and Lily is somewhere. Okay, they're all coming on later, so you get to see them all later. And Charlotte also met Ollie on a volunteer work night out in Drayton, so relative. And then Ollie came to volunteer, and that was how they kind of got to know each other. So Sophie, as Sophie mentioned, she married a volunteer as well, and I think there's probably lots more. Right, okay, I think there's opportunity for question and answer thing with me later. Is that right?
Thanks, Dan. I can't believe that we are on the nail for time. Right, yeah! No, yeah, actually, no, can't be right, we are. So, is the helicopter, yeah, wonderful. So, helicopter's going to start setting off in 5 minutes. And I'm going to give you a little activity to do while he's chuttering away and up in the air. But before I do that, because I've got a couple of minutes, I'm going to take advantage of it and share another story. These guys mentioned the naysayers, both of them did. It was so powerful. And there was one story, I went to Staffordshire County Show, and one such of those farmers that Ben had probably met as well on the journey came up to me, and it was literally 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the campaign. We still had £250,000 to raise. And this guy came up to me, quite a traditional farmer, and he said, "Oh, I've read about what you're doing, seen it in the press. Sounds all right. You won't do it though." I said, "How do you know?" He said, "You won't raise that amount of money in that time. It's not possible." I said, "What if, but someone might just turn up at the door tomorrow with £1 million cheque. You just don't know." He went, "No, won't happen." He said, "You won't raise the money in time, but they might let you stay because you've had a lot of press." but you won't raise the money in time. And whatever I said, that was his line. I was like, but you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I said, he said, no, you won't do it. Oh my gosh, I came home, do you remember, Sophie? I was fuming. I was like, if for no other reason than to prove that one person wrong, we are going to do it. I'm like, okay. And we did. And we've seen him since. We have, yeah. Actually, after the campaign, he invited us to come and speak to all the big farmers. I'm like, are you sure you want us? You want to come on? Yeah, okay.
1 minute.
Okay, give me a sec. What happened was what we could never believe would happen. 8,000 strangers saved our family home and became friends. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. Danny was an amazing inspiration at the beginning, and I'll pass over to Danny. But just in case the helicopter starts chuttering while Danny's talking, there's going to be about 10 minutes or so while the helicopter is setting all of his settings, getting himself safe, ready to lift off. When the noise will start, propellers will start going. When he lifts off, it's going to do a low fly round over here, so you don't have to get up, you'll see him.
She's flying.
She's flying!
Bubbles flying.
Hey! Thank you, Charlotte. She's flying like it. Okay. They'll do a low fly round down here so we can all wave as they go past, okay? So you don't have to get out of your chairs, you will see the helicopter go up and past. And we'll have some, they're already ready. Staff members are here at the exit point so you can't run into the field. And don't run into the fences, please stay as you are. And then we will, once the helicopter's gone, we're coming back. There's more to come. There's music, there's a bit of creative art. We'll bring it over. I'm going to pass over to Danny.
Hello everybody. First thing I want to say to all of you is absolutely well done for what you've achieved. I was coming here a couple of years before there was any volunteers or anything that was here, and when I came here, I don't know why or what I was doing here, but I was told in a college in London, in Kingston, that there was an incredible project here and it was worth going to see. And out of the class, the teacher pointed and said, and especially you, Danny. I never went back to my class again. I stayed involved with here. And in that couple of years before everybody got here, I was just doing tasks around the place, tidying up, making the fire, all that sort of thing. But when all you lot got involved and made it into what it is now, I could not have had a bigger thank you. So I want to thank you for what you've achieved from volunteer number one. Thank you all.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, so when the helicopter is making lots of noise, I feel like I just want to keep on talking. But when that starts, what I'm going to ask you all to do is to turn to someone near to you that you've not yet met, or that you've not seen for a long time if they're that close. And I want you to share your story of getting involved with Fordhall. What was your first memory? What was it that sparked your interest? Where did you see it? Why are you still here? Why did you come along today? And if you're new here today, then listen to those stories around you and kind of go, what is it that interests Fordhall that you know about so far? What would you like to know a little bit more about? Because what's really important is that we spark relationships across and within each other, as well as the relationship that we have and Fordhall has with you. The helicopter does know he's okay to start, does he? Because I'm on the nail on the minute. Where's Ashley? Yeah, I think he does. Because you've got going to have about 15 minutes talking. Before that happens, Chris, Alden Lee, do you want to come up and tell us a little bit about what's coming up next? You can stay
I was younger once upon a time. Afternoon! Yeah, I'm Chris Elderly. I was chairman of Ford Hall for more years than anybody cares to remember. And I got involved in the late 80s when I met Arthur Hollins over a microphone to record a radio interview with him about the farm, having read the book The Farmer, the Plough and the Devil. And I made the mistake of suggesting we ought to turn it into a play. And he said, great, what a lovely idea. So I began to work on the play. I'd never written one before, and I would send the draft script off to Ford Hall Farm to Arthur Hollins to have a look at, because I wanted to make sure that he was happy with what we were doing. And I never hear from him. I never get a reply. Several versions of the play ended up in his letterbox, never had a reply. Eventually I phoned up and said, is everything okay? And he said, yes, I'm perfectly happy, please go ahead. And we got to the first night in Ponsonby Public Hall in the winter of 1991. And I was a bit nervous actually. I was walking up and down the car park outside, and I noticed a small man walking up and down the car park in the opposite direction. And it was Arthur. And he was pacing up and down like I was. And I was saying to him, I know why I'm nervous, Arthur, because we've never had a paper before, but you know exactly what we're going to say about you. You shouldn't be nervous. And he then said, oh yes, he said, I didn't read any of those scripts. I didn't want to spoil the moment. Bloody ruined mine, I tell you. And the original play toured around Shropshire, ended up at the New Vic. Peter Cheeseman, who was then the director of the New Vic Theatre in Stoke-on-Trent, was a good friend of Arthur's. He came here quite a lot. And that first play toured for 16 venues. And then in 2007 or so, yeah, I'll talk louder than the helicopter, don't you worry. In 2007, I met Charlotte for the first time in 20 odd years, and she pinned me against the wall and said, do the play again. And then last year, I met Charlotte again, she pinned me against the wall and said, do the play again. So we're going to a third version later this year as part of the 20th anniversary celebrations, which will be performed at the Cecil Theatre in Market Road and then at Theatre 7 in Shrewsbury. And very shortly after the helicopter, the members of the cast and some of the choir are going to gather here. We're going to give you a taster of what the play will be like if you go to come and see it later in this year.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, share your stories. Speak to those next to you. Speak to someone that you've not met yet as a helicopter warms up the propellers.
Charlotte's got one, and the choir is one.
Can you set them up on the stands now?
Yeah, no, it was really quite a strange feeling from having been here and really struggling just being here and not making sure the gates were right. Yeah. That's it. Safety work coming in and driving training there. And I was kind of like with our dog and tidying up, and that was okay because I knew that this was going to be something good on there because of what's already been done by Arthur. I used to see come out and he had the long grey road, silver road. When he come out in the morning, he'd go hard. What about naysayers? That's what I do well.
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
Attention, please. Please be on your chairs when the helicopter lift off the ground, please. Thank you.
Do you want me to get another line going behind?
Yeah. We want to get them as close as we can, maybe even like a fan effect.
No, I know. I don't know if I can. No, because it's the problem that we've got is it's on mute, and I can't unmute it. You go through the menu, it's a whole load of different options, none of them.
This is mute. This is mute.
Yeah, but I can't. No matter how much you press that, it won't come off mute.
One more mic. Then tell you what, if I take it from Charlotte,
Take it from Charlotte.
that's what we did quick.
It is, yeah.
We arranged to get up and do that. She's a volunteer.
Okay, everybody, did you share some stories? Wonderful. Wasn't that amazing? The helicopter just hovering there. I'm so excited it was a female driver. Pilot. Pilot. So, my husband's an engineer. He said, Charlotte, firstly, helicopters do not chunter. And they don't have propellers. They have rotary blades. Rotors. You all knew what I meant, right? Thank you. Okay, so just as the choir are getting themselves ready to come on, Chris has told you a little bit of background on them. I just want to talk a little bit about the future and the where next at Ford Hall, just as the choir are gathering themselves. Have we got chairs for the choir, by the way? Is that... They're coming, I think they're going to come here, is that right? Can't see Ashley or anybody. We don't need chairs, but they are coming here. Okay, alright, okay, so the choir are going to gather here. So, Ben said a little bit of kind of like where next, and what could it hold. And we've been thinking a lot about this recently, and thinking, actually we've done a lot of the major things here at Ford Hall, a lot of the things like the Straw Lodge. The Straw Lodge building, the timber frame in that building, the timber frame that holds up the roof in the lounge area, was built by 3 women and 1 man. Don't see that on a building site very often either, do you? Anyway, the future, coming back to, is we want to make sure that this little piece of magic, come in choir, come and gather yourselves as I'm talking, isn't just kept here at Ford Hall, but actually is spread out. And how do we use all of our learning over the last 20 years to help more farms to survive, to help more families stay on the land, to help create more livelihoods, and to support more organic farming. And many of you will be part of us kind of knowing that we're kind of potentially taking on another farm in Devon. And all of this is really starting to think about how can we use our knowledge, our learning, our members as support to really build a movement. So this year we are launching an appeal to bring in 1,000 new shareholders. So those people that didn't know what you'd come to today and want to be one of our 1,000 new shareholders, please do join in. We want to see how we can spread community ownership across the country. Ben mentioned it's got a 100-year tenancy agreement. That pretty much is only possible because the farm is in community ownership, and the purpose of this land is for farming, the purpose is for community access, the purpose is to keep it organic. The purpose is not to buy a piece of land as a financial asset. When you do that, and you buy that land as a financial asset, you are offering a short-term tenancy, because you need to keep the options open to keep the value of that asset. The moment Ben signed that 100-year tenancy agreement, the farm that was worth £800,000 was suddenly worth less than £400,000, because for the next 100 years it can't be sold for anything other than a